So now that we have our part name, let's take a look at it, see what it did to our model. You can see up here in our menu bar, you can see the name of the part up here, the 170920 hinge plate. And then over here in our Feature Manager, you can see it's named over here too. So it's not no longer part number 1. It's going to be the same name, the 170920 hinge plate. So while we're over here, let's take a look at some of the managers. I've been calling this the Feature Manager a couple different times, but there are other managers up here too. So if you look at the bars up here, they're associated with the managers. The most common one is going to be the Feature Manager on the left-hand side. But what's right next to that is the Properties Manager. If you click on Edit, it's actually suggesting that you need to select an entity in order to view or modify its properties. If you want to do something with that, if you want to see how the Properties Manager comes up, if you right-click on this part, maybe go ahead and edit that feature. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a right mouse button, clicking on the part that we created, and we're going to go ahead and edit that feature. You'll notice that if you go over here now, we're out of the Feature Manager, and we're in the Properties Manager. It's the Properties Manager that comes up. It gives you the capacity to make modifications to your part, whether it's to the sketch or to a feature they might be working on. And you'll notice this looks very familiar to what we saw before when we actually created that boss extrude. And from the very top, working our way down, we started with the sketch plane. We're going to cover some of the different options over here too a little bit later. We did the mid plane. Remember, we did that instead of blind. We did mid plane. We went ahead and selected that in order to maintain symmetry. And again, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit too. And we're going to, the format that we're going to be following in this class are the toolbar tours as part of the videos we're going to be looking at. Generally, we're going to be starting from the very top and working our way down. So we're not going to cover all the options here, but I do want to show you around. Some of the more important things are from where you want to start that extrude, the direction of that extrude, which is going to be mid-plane, and then the thickness of that, which is going to be 1/4 of an inch. So that's our Properties Manager. Now we can go over here to our Configurations Manager, and the Properties Manager over here is still active. So we're going to go ahead and take that, and we can actually move this down. So you can see the Properties Manager is active over here until we close it. So now it actually takes our managers and splits it. We have a part on top, and we have a part on the bottom. In order to get out of the part on the bottom, we have to tell it, accept our changes or cancel our changes. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to cancel that out. So the third manager over here is going to be the Configuration Manager. We don't have any different configurations in here, but once we start putting on our hinge plate some of the rounds that are associated with the hinge and the holes, and if we want to make modifications to that, for instance, if we want to make the hinge plate instead of a 4-inch square, a 6-inch square, the Configuration Manager actually comes into play here and actually makes it very convenient for you. If all we're going to be doing is changing one dimension on this, what SolidWorks does is allow us to save one part with two different configurations, a 4-inch configuration and a 6-inch configuration. So that's what the Configuration Manager is all about, and I'll show you how to set that up in a later video. Next one is Dimension Expert. We don't have a whole lot of dimensions on this, but this is kind of geared towards drawings or models you're going to be saving for somebody else's use, and it gives you the capacity to add extra annotations onto it, geometric dimensioning and tolerancing symbols onto your model so that it'll reflect either on the model that you're sending to somebody or on a drawing that you might want to have reflected on there too. So the next one over is Display Manager, and one thing is common about all the SolidWorks tools up here, if you take your cursor and just rest it over that, it tells you what that tool is. So if you rest your cursor over here next to that colored beach ball, it kind of looks like a beach ball over here. It's called the Display Manager. That gives you the capacity to actually modify some of the display options associated with your part. Right now we have kind of the basic white background display in here. But with that white background, it comes with a couple of different elements in here. So the first one over here, if you rest your cursor over that, over the beach ball, it says View Appearances. Right now we have polished brass, but we could actually change that if we wanted to, while still maintaining the material properties that we've already assigned to it, which is already brass. Decals, if you want to add a decal on it, if you want to put a logo on a part, that's for decals. We're going to cover that here in a little bit when we talk about PhotoView 360. Which is an image rendering program embedded in SolidWorks. Now the last element over here is view scene, lights, and camera. So a lot of this is going to be important when we actually go into PhotoView 360 and the Motion Manager too sometimes. And we're going to start from the top. We can define the scene, we can define the lights, Right now we actually have lights in this. So we have an ambient light in the background. We have 3 directional lights. We could put a camera in here, and we can actually do a walkthrough. A camera would be good if we want to specify a certain look of a certain width and depth of the camera. We can do that too. We can actually define a camera and a number of different cameras in here. And a walkthrough too. We can actually take that camera and walk it through a specific path through a model if we want to do that. So one thing before we leave our manager area, let's go ahead and click back on our Feature Manager to get our features back that we've been working on. And you notice we have an arrow over here. This arrow takes us over here to the display pane. And this is actually more stuff. So, we're not going to cover this in a whole lot of detail. You're just starting out in SolidWorks. There's a lot of stuff here. But just let me show you real quick what these might do, because we're going to cover these in later videos too. So this is a hide show button. We can go down here and actually click on things and tell it to hide or show. And if you do that in the modeling area and the graphic area, it actually show that. That's pretty straightforward, but a lot of these other columns aren't really filled in. The second one over here is called the display mode. This is going to be appearances. So when we apply appearances, which we do here, we could actually make modifications to it. So now we have that ball instead of a beach ball, we have a brass ball over here. We can change some of the appearances there and the colors associated with it too. The last one is going to be transparency. So let's go back over here and let's go ahead and close this. Let's go to that arrow and close that so it doesn't clutter up our screen. And make sure you're back over here to our Feature Manager. We're going to talk about that here a little bit more.